I have read over 30 books by Stephen King, but what's crazy about that is I haven't even read half of his work yet. That is wild, but also fun to think about that I still have over 30 books that I get to read by one of my all-time favorite authors for the very first time. Like, hello? And I'm gonna be doing that soon because I am starting my Stephen King journey over again. Say what? Come again? Listen, Stephen King has a multiverse, and he is like the king of dropping the Easter eggs. You can pick up one book, crack it open, be reading it, and there's a character from another book. This villain is also a villain in that book, but that book, they're not even in the series, but hello? It's just like a whole multiverse. And I have read a few books that I got to see a little treat, a little hi from an old character, and it was just a fun time. And I'm like, how many other books could I also experience this in if I would have read them in publication order? You know what I mean? So I want to start over. After this video goes up, I will be starting over, and I'll be starting with Carrie and just reading them in publication order. And I'm gonna vlog the entire thing. My goal is to get them done in 2 years. That's my time limit. It is currently April 2025. So hopefully, Beth, it's April 2027 and you're looking back at this video. You're looking back at this video to see if these books stood the test of time, if these books stayed your favorite Stephen King books now that you have finished all of his work. That's the purpose of this video. That's what we're doing. I'm gonna talk about 5 Stephen King books. I could probably talk about 20. I'm not saying Stephen King writes nothing but bangers, okay? Because I've read some duds. But what I am saying is he writes more bangers than duds. If you can make me cry, bitch. I have cried more reading Stephen King books than I have any other author. I have cried probably half of the books that I've read by him so far. I have cried. That's crazy if you really think about it. That's neither here nor there. Or is it? Let's dive in to book number 5. We have Mr. Mercedes by Stephen King. Beth, they know who these books are by. This entire video is about Stephen King. Okay. Mr. Mercedes. This is book number 1 in the Bill Hodges trilogy. I'm not including books 2 and 3. This is my favorite of the trilogy. I actually recommend this book a lot, especially if you're coming to me and you're like, Beth, I don't know where to start with Stephen King. And I'm gonna ask you, hey, do you love thrillers? Do you love dark thrillers? Do you love police procedural detective type thrillers? Do you like to sleuth? Do you love a dark villain? Start here. Because it is horror, okay? But it's like a really fucked up thriller. That's what kind of horror this is. There's no woo-woo in this one, okay? So at the very beginning of this book, we have this job fair. A ton of people are lined up waiting for the doors to open. It's bright and early in the morning, and you're getting the perspective of these characters that are waiting there. And all of a sudden, vroom, vroom, this car, this Mercedes comes out of nowhere and decides to plow through all these people. And he winds up killing, I want to say about 8 people and injuring tons. And then he just kind of disappears off the face of the planet until the lead detective that was on the case is now retired, and his name is Bill Hodges. That is our main character throughout most of the story. Though you do get other side characters that you're probably gonna fall in love with, okay? But Bill Hodges is our main man. And old Bill is now sitting in a recliner, and he's got a GUN out, and he's pretty much getting ready to unalive himself. Let's just be honest here. He just doesn't know what to live for anymore. He's retired from his job, which was his entire world. He has nobody, and it sucks. It sucks for him. And he has this case that was never solved, and that also is something that has been taunting him. And then he gets a message. From who, you ask? Mr. Mercedes, okay? He gets a message from him. Bill Hodges is like, you know what, Bet, I ain't finna unalive myself today. I'm gonna find you and I'm gonna unalive you, my friend. It's, it's so good. I have seen people who don't even read horror, who don't even read Stephen King, pick this book up and 5-star it. I'm telling you right now, it is disturbing. Okay, his villains are villainous. They say some mean things. They literally out there killing people. They ain't gonna be nice and try not to hurt your feelings, okay? Just know that. But this is in my number 5 slot. Is it one of his classics? No, but it's a classic in my heart. Now, number 4 is the classic, and it's one of his books that I've actually read twice. And when you look at the girth of this bad boy, you're thinking, bitch, you read that twice? It was that good. It was that good. I read it twice. I read it twice. The first time I read it physically, and I don't really have to go into what it is about. I feel like most people, even people, I knew what it was about before I even read the book, and I hadn't even seen the movie. Like, I knew what it was about. You know what I mean? But listen, the first time I read this book, I read it physically. I was sitting on my couch, and I got to the scene, you know, the Georgie scene, and I don't know what, it creeped the out of me. Books normally don't do that to me. I like to read dark books, but it did, and I had to put the book up until the next day when the sun was out. Okay? Wow. And then I also listened to the audiobook, and if you are wanting a good audiobook, like if you have, I don't know, like a road trip to go on, you want to crochet your granny an Afghan, you're baking cookies, and you're going to be baking cookies for 7 hours, 7 days more so, because it's a very long audiobook. 10 out of 10 recommend the audiobook. The narrator, phenomenal job. One of the best narrators out there. I kid you not. It's a doorstopper, but it is worth it, my friends. And if you're thinking, but I've heard about the scene towards the end, listen, even Stephen King regrets that part, okay? Like, there's a literal clown in here going around town killing children, okay? That should be the most disturbing part of the book, but oh my gosh, there's this character in here named Patrick. You think Pennywise is the biggest villain in this book, but I beg to differ. And if you haven't read it yet, did you know? Because I didn't know this until I read it. Did you know that it is not his name? His name is Pennywise, okay? I didn't know that until I read the actual book. But when I was little, my mom had a VHS tape of it. Tapes, plural. It was a two, you know, like Titanic was the two tapes together, if you're my age. So was it. We all called it It the Clown. It the Clown! Ah! No. Bitch's name is Pennywise. Okay, anyway, next. Number 3. You know, I should probably do like a top 5 author photos, because he has some he has some good ones. Check him out there with his mustache. This book was my very first Stephen King book that I dove into, and I picked this one up because this was in 2021, January. I want to say it was the very first book that I read that year. I picked it up because I wanted to get into horror. I hadn't yet got into horror, and somebody told me that since I love darker thrillers, that they think that this would be a good segue into horror because it read like a darker thriller. And I was like, you know what, bet. And I read it and I was obsessed. It started this entire collection. It started my love for this man. You see this bust here of Stephen King? I paid like $100 for that off of Etsy. That is how, you know what I mean? That is how much I have been obsessed with this man. It's probably unhealthy. Anyway, Misery by Stephen King. Look, the first line of this says, Stephen King is arguably the most popular novelist in the history of American fiction. He owes his fans a love letter. Misery is it. I love to read books where the main characters have something to do in the bookish world, whether they are the author or the literary agent or even a reader. I love it. I've never been an author and I will never be an author, but I still feel like I can somewhat relate to the main characters. And Stephen King does that a lot, you know, because write what you know. Write what you know, and that's what he knows. Beth, get to the book. Okay, so Misery, we have this man named Paul Sheldon, and Paul is an author. Oh my gosh, hang on. This is the mass market paperback of Misery, and they did a step back for a cover of one of the books. This is Misery's Return, the last book, I believe, in the series. But how I hunted this book down to find this. I wish somebody would turn this into like a big art print and I would buy it and put it on my wall. So Paul Sheldon has written this series called the Misery Chastain series, and the final book, he just finished the final book, submitted it to his literary agent or whoever it is, and now he is staying at this cabin getting ready to write his next book. And he's like, you know what, I've written for these people for so long, it is time that I write something for me, damn it. And so he's writing a book about a car. or something. He's, at his cabin doing his damn thing, and then it's time to leave. So he gets into his little car, broom, broom. It is snowing outside really bad, and he gets into this car, and he's driving, and all of a sudden he gets into an accident. And then when he wakes up, there's someone there standing above him. #1 fan. I'm your #1 fan. Well, anyway, she winds up rescuing him, taking him to her house, and healing him because she knows a thing or two about being a nurse, okay? If you know, you know. She's there healing him, getting him, because he's literally her favorite author. Well, then guess what? It is time for the book to come out, to be released. And she's so excited. She's like, yes, I pre-ordered it. I'm going to go pick it up. I am so excited to read it, and then we can discuss it and blah, blah, blah. She goes and gets the book and she reads it. And then like the next day or two, she enters his room and she is pissed the fuck off. Why? Because of how it ended. Oh, she's pissed. And so she goes out and gets him a little typewriter and slams it on the desk. And she's like, your bitch ass is not leaving here until you rewrite that fucking book. And let me just tell you, it gets crazy. And the fact that I've only ever read this book one time in 2021, and I can still recite what the book is about, truly says a lot about this book. I really want to reread. I am going to reread this when I restart, whatever. Misery by Stephen King. Also, I want to say the writing in this one is what really got me, because as you're reading it, when Paul Sheldon is on painkillers, his inner monologue kind of reads that way. You could tell he's on something as you're you know what I mean? And I don't know what it was. I was just like, this is brilliant. In the #2 slot, we have a book that I have heard so many people say it's their favorite book of all time. It's their favorite Stephen King book. It is his best written book. It is a doorstopper. It is a tome. It is a book that I would have never picked up because, let's be real, this cover is ugly as fuck. I would have never picked this book up. Never. What about this looks like something that I would read, is what I said prior to reading this last year. Okay, but now it's my second, sometimes it's my all-time favorite Stephen King book, and then sometimes it's in the #2 slot. It probably really depends on what phase of the month I'm in, okay? This one, listen, it's a pandemic, truly. There's a weaponized influenza situation that has gone down. It's gotten out. 99% of the population gone. The survivors are either on their way to meet this lady, 108-year-old aunt that is good, filled with goodness, and they love her, or they're on their way to meet Randall Flagg, a man, dark, villainous, evil. Okay, the evil people are led there, and it starts out as a book that has to do with survival and ends with a book that is essentially good versus evil. There's lots of characters, and at first I kind of felt a little overwhelmed, and I was like, maybe I need to write me a little character tree. But once you get into it, and you don't need a character tree. You are in it. I've cried reading this book. There's a scene in here that it just kind of broke my little heart, and I cried. And it is beautiful. It is amazing. I'm so glad I did not read this in 2020, because this could have led me to a Minty B because of how closely it felt. Let's just say that. Trust me, you're gonna want to read this one. Now let's talk about book #1, my all-time favorite Stephen King book. And I would argue that this is Stephen King's romance book. And maybe that's why I also heard this rumor. Correct me if I'm wrong, because I could be wrong. But Stephen King doesn't have a good reputation when it comes to endings. He even has joked about it, both in little cameos that he has played in movies and just in interviews and stuff. He himself admits that he's not the best at endings, okay? I heard a little rumor, I didn't Google to see if it was true, I just saw it on Threads, that Joe Hill, Stephen King's son, actually came up with the ending. He gave his dad the idea. And that's why this has the best ending in all of Stephen King's works that I've read. First off, broke me to pieces. I cried so hard. I was so mad. So good though. don't even know where to start with this, okay? So first and foremost, remember when I was telling you about how Stephen King has this multiverse and like you'll see other characters from other books and this, that, and the other? This is a good example of that in the sense that in this book, our main character, Jake, meets characters from It. So before you pick this up, I would definitely recommend reading It. Okay? I saw another booktuber read this book and she hadn't read It prior, and she even mentioned in her reading vlog how there was like a chapter or two that she thought was pointless because he was just talking to people in this town. Those people are Beverly and Richie, and if you would have read It prior, it would have been such a treat because they're even talking about Pennywise and like the mess that's going down in the town and this and the other. So let's talk about the book. So in this book, we have a 30-ish-year-old divorced English teacher who, on the side, to make extra money, he teaches these GED classes. And one of the students in this GED class writes a very dark and heartbreaking story about his family and such. And that plays a big role in the whole story of this. So you get to read that, but then also we have this diner that Jake visits often, and the diner owner, Al, tells him, he's like, yo, in the back there's this closet. You could time travel, essentially. You open the door and you can go back, whatever. And because like that's his secret as to why he can still sell super cheap items, is because he goes back in time to buy them when they were super cheap. They just kind of make this deal. He's like, yo, I was trying to go and save JFK by going back in time to 11/22/63 and stopping him from being assassinated. They strike up this deal and Jake's like, all right, I'll try. But it just, I know it sounds so simple and boring and whatever. It's not. It is absolutely not. There's just so, you just have to read it and be prepared to cry. Okay, if you're like me, be prepared to cry. This is what I would say is the closest thing to a romance book that Stephen King has written, is in this here book. So good. Those are my top 5 Stephen King books of all time as of right now. And I'm so excited to dive back in and start from the beginning with Carrie and just make my way through his entire backlist until I get to, I will be reading his new book that comes out next month when it comes out. But other than that, I'm gonna stick to reading them in chronological order to see if I can see all the fun Easter eggs and things like that. I think it's gonna be a really fun time. And I'm gonna document it here on YouTube. I'm gonna do reading vlogs for the books and stuff. So if you're into that, make sure you follow me by subscribing and sticking around. Let me know in the comments below what your all-time favorite Stephen King book is if you've read a Stephen King book. I would love to know. A few popular ones is, of course, the Dark Tower series. People tell me Needful Things all the time. Eye of the Dragon, Lizzie's Story. Those are mentioned to me quite often. But let me know down in the comments below what your favorite Stephen King book is, and I'll let you know if I've read it or not. And that is that, my friends. I hope you enjoyed this video, and I hope this video has encouraged you to pick up a book or two. And until next time, bye.